We all are local in some place or the other. And social networks, certainly we spend an inordinate amount of time on networks, but actually making them all work for you as a single person. So what connects Solo is just you as a person, and you're everywhere. So that connection, making it all work for you, that's new, and that's what we're here to talk about, is how to actually leverage that into commerce or into services, local services that makes sense. Very early, I think there's a lot of opportunity for great ideas, great execution to make this work as a business.
Would you guys have anything to add, or?
No,
I mean, what might be interesting is to look at where these elements intersect with consumers throughout the whole buying process. You know, from thinking about wanting something to exploring the products to buying the product, and then of course companies want to build loyalty and provide customer service right after someone buys the product. I mean, anybody care to take a stab at walking through where these elements intersect in that process?
Sure. If you think about, I mean, we could make this conversation really complicated, or we could keep it fairly simple, which in the end it really is, because if you think about
simple.
Simple. So if you think about what we're talking about here with the low, so, mo, real, or the solo, mo, whatever, is that, I mean, local is about give me offers that are relevant to me, you know, stuff that's in my neighborhood. Social is about give me stuff that I care about. So try and understand my expressed interests or needs, or frankly even factor in what my friends are buying or looking at or interested in. And the whole thing about mobile is, you know, you're trying to connect with the person wherever they might be. So that's really the paradigm shift. If you think about the job of a CMO from a few years ago, it used to be, I got to do 2 media buys. Here's a big truck of money, I put that in print. And I take the other truck of money and I put it in TV. Now the beauty of what they can do today is they know where people live. They've got this lovely system called location-based services, which helps you with local. They've got this other great system called social networking, which tells you what people are thinking and looking for and want to buy, and even what their friends are thinking. So you've got that, and then you've got the mobile phone. So I can connect with people knowing their interests and give them targeted offers. It's great, except it's overwhelming for the advertiser and for the marketer, because now they have so many different opportunities. And I know there are a lot of tech people in the audience here. I think CMOs are going, oh my God, the number of Venn diagrams I can do with this local social mobile thing, unbelievable. I mean, the opportunities are mind-boggling for the CMOs. So there's a lot of experimentation today. So I would say we're in the hype cycle phase and the tech phase, all the stuff we call check-ins and like and this and that. I mean, it's just mumbo-jumbo for the moment. And that's why it's not mainstream yet, which is why today we talk about it in these goofy terms. It needs to translate into consumer value, which it will in a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I think if we think about how overwhelming this for the CMO, also just as consumers in this room, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is, you know, I think what people are seeing is there's just saturation for consumers now. So even in the daily deal space, whatever it is, there's 200 competitors. How many emails are you going to sign up for realistically? So I think, and sort of, we're in the first inning. I think as you see us getting to, like, you know, the 3rd, 4th, 5th inning, it's going to be thinking more about, okay, people know my whereabouts, people know my whoabouts, you know, I have this social graph, and it's going to be really rich analysis based on who I am and making something very relevant to me, which I think, again, we're just in the infant stages of that.
Siva,
Well, I started off.
your answer was taken.
That was amazing.
You know, talking about the whoabouts and the whereabouts and all, you know, recently there have been, I mean, privacy is constantly an issue, and recently we had the, you know, Apple tracking, I'll call it a scandal because I work for a newspaper, but the Apple tracking issue and Google and Android. What's the chance that some of these privacy concerns might, if not derail this movement, it certainly throw up some obstacles? How do you see that?
I think there's, there was a story from Europe just earlier this week where they talked about how they're going to start looking at your location in a very different way, and probably similar to the way they think about your name and your birthday and so on. So it will become more and more the case that that information is protected. So it's fine to say, I know your location, here's something that's relevant based on your location, but storing your location, and sort of building graphs around it and all that kind of stuff, I think will start to become more protective than it is today. There's just going to be, I think, a lot of scrutiny around that. And certainly people, even as much as we live all this stuff today, I think people still creep out a little bit when you go, oh my God, you know everything about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the same in the US? And do you, I mean, if you just sort of fast forward 5 years, or, I mean, if you think of the generational perspective, you know, folks today or younger folks today at least, I mean, privacy is almost not, I don't think they even view privacy the same way that many of us in this room view it as.
Right, I think people do have, I mean, I think Scott McNeely said it 10 or 15 years ago when he said, you know, if you have any notion of privacy, you're kidding yourselves. And I think that's for the most part true. I think there was a big story in the journal for weeks on end last year where they talked about how on any given site there are 75 trackers, not 1 or 2 trackers, 75 trackers. And you know, so pretty much all of these companies know everything there is to know about you. But even as somebody in the industry, every time I'm on a website, very often I have an experience of, no, damn it, I don't want to give you that information because I'm just sick and tired of this thing. It's like, how much time are you going to spend following me around? And so people still flip out about it. And I think there's just going to be certain pieces of information which will go to that place. And I think tracking you physically in a continuous way is probably going to meet that criteria of not acceptable. So knowing your location and marketing to you just in time would be fine, but building graphs around and things like that will probably not meet the test, but that's okay.
But, I mean, don't you, I mean, wouldn't you like to build those files of people's likes and habits and,
Yes, I think to a certain degree. So, you know, the stuff that you get off Facebook with Facebook Connect, I think all of those things will be valid. So those are expressed interests that you're putting in the public domain. Where I am at every point in time, where I'm right this minute is okay. But where I've been for the last 3-4 days, for the last 3 or 4 months, I can really ask you to follow me around.
I always feel like I would have the ultimate revenge for anyone creating such a dossier on me that they would absolutely just die of boredom. but anyway.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's actually a great opportunity, though. So, I mean, I think, I don't know, maybe a question to everyone in this room, but I think there is a great opportunity where I actually wouldn't mind necessarily people knowing where I'm at if I got actually tremendous value from that, right? If there were actually some application that really did deliver meaningful results to me because of that, I would be comfortable with that.
My view is I think it's the matter of how you keep the data. I think serving up offers and keeping the data still as an individual, right? So if you store the data as this is exactly what Mike did, that's different than saying, okay, I'm going to keep the data as an aggregate mass, and then serve up data offers just for you, or results just for you. Because better relevance is really important. That's what we are looking for. It's not the 50 daily deals we can get in the mail. It's not I search for something and I find a whole lot of stuff that I never buy. Yeah. It is very specific to you, and marketer's job is to provide you exactly what you want. And the opposite of that is, okay, what is the data going to be used for? The fear that it's going to be abused.
Right.
And I think that's key. It's you give up your mailing address to the catalog all day long. You get the catalog in the mail, they know everything about it.
Well, you know, what about the generational notion, you know, younger people like me, but, okay, well, I have a daughter who's in high school, I know, thank you for your condolences, but anyway, we're at the breakfast table one morning, and she's reading the news, which she reads on, you know, a device like that. I've got the big newspaper out, but she sees a story about some website that compiles data on people, you know, basically from public records, I think. And she sees this and says, cool, I'm gonna look myself up. And I'm horrified, I'm like, what? And so, I mean, there seems to be some sort of difference about, well, at least in our house, I don't know, is there a generational, I mean, are younger people who are coming up, are they gonna be much more comfortable with this sort of thing?
It's actually a greater tolerance for privacy in the sense that people today, or people that are 10 or 15 years old today, just grew up in a different world. So they've always been connected. The notion of being on Facebook isn't almost a choice, it's just what it is. And so I think people have a different experience of it. And I think it's not that the older set isn't adapting. I mean, frankly, there are more grandparents on Facebook than there are high schoolers. So people have adapted.
Facebook should probably be worried about that. maybe it's becoming uncool.
I think there is a risk of that, yes.
So some slow in the actually. So slow.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, speaking of Facebook, which I guess we should, I mean, doesn't everyone? But I was reading the other day a story about FCommerce, which sounds a little obscene, but it was actually about marketing on Facebook. And it got me wondering, I mean, does anybody, grandparents or teenagers, does anybody buy anything on Facebook? I mean, what is FCommerce?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are a couple of different ways to think about it. One is you're on Facebook itself. So your P&G, you might have a Facebook fan page, and then you're selling Pampers on Facebook, which they did very successfully. There's a more extensible way to think about FCommerce, which is not on Facebook, on your own website, but using information from Facebook. So, I don't know if Jay is in the room here, but Shop Socially is a wonderful little company that's leveraging Facebook just in that way, in that I could be on a website, I buy something, and then I tell all my friends what I just bought, so that they might buy the next thing. So, you know, there you're leveraging the relationships that I have to basically drive leads to the next person. So there's a couple of different ways to do it, both on and off Facebook. Yeah, I think the greater opportunity is to leverage information from Facebook at a place which is more natural for people to buy, which is on your website as opposed to on Facebook itself.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at LinkedIn Social, very similar to Shop Socially, but I mean, one of the things, we actually have a customer incentive program where if you end up, excuse me, buying a particular deal and you share it with 3 people, you can do it on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. If they end up sharing it and 3 of your friends buy it, they get it for free, right? So you can sort of leverage and really engage your customers. And then on the flip side, we also have a program for merchants where in the deal copy for every single deal that goes out every day, you can get our Living Social customers to like your fan page. So if a merchant has a Facebook page, and then all of a sudden they have retention marketing there, right? Like they've now gotten our customers that have liked their business, and then that merchant is now responsible for any future communication with those folks.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at FCommerce and Facebook-driven commerce as a broad picture. There's all aspects to it. For example, everybody in the room will want to argue with the statement that Google has a lot of influence on e-commerce. But do you actually buy things on Google? Not yet, maybe in the future. That's like that. So Facebook as an ecosystem has a lot of influence on commerce. And there's a small part of that that actually is commerce transacted inside Facebook. Again, there's a role for that. You could actually have fan pages where as a fan club is selling stuff to its members, right? So there could be something like that. All the way to ads on Facebook, they're actually now pretty popular. I'm sure you would see them if you are logged into Facebook. A whole bunch of ads that are driven around commerce, around subscriptions and so on. And the last one is the whole influence about the graph, the social graph. I gotta throw out words like that. So if you extend social graphs to actually make that work for you, both as a viral mechanism, but also as a mechanism to provide you more relevance, right? So if I see a store that I want to shop at, and I know that 6 of my friends have shopped there before, that's useful information. I wasn't going to ask them about it, but their faces are there, so I can see it. So there's various ways to use that to drive commerce, and I think that's what we'll see going forward. Is Facebook's interested in that, and us as entrepreneurs could find nice ways to couple them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, I think anytime a space gets a cute little nickname like low, slow, low, or slow, low, low, or whatever, it's time to talk about the bubble. But no, I'm wondering, you know, there are just hundreds of these different, hundreds and hundreds of companies doing different things to work in this space. Are we on the verge of a bubble, or is there a danger of any sort of bubble? What do you say?
So we were, before folks came in, we were talking about the New Economist actually has, that's the cover for the New Economist. So, you know, and for the VCs in the room, I mean, you guys have a much better sense of this, but, you know, looking at, there's a lot of money to be going around, and I think when you start seeing M&A activity pick up things like that, folks want to be involved in whatever the particular space is that gets popular. You know, I think as you compare back to the previous bubble, the thing that is, I think, it's reassuring to a certain extent, is that you actually have businesses that are making revenues that actually have profitability. And it's not just something that .com at the end of it. So I think, and there's a variety of reasons for that. Technology, sort of we've learned our lessons to a certain extent. But yeah, I mean, I can look at the daily deals more when you have 200 competitors coming in. There's obviously some elements to frothiness going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a perception of a bubble because of the activity, and I think the activity is significant because it is a hot space. And the cool thing is that it doesn't take much to participate, right? I mean, it takes less than $1 million or so to get into the game. So obviously a lot of people are choosing to participate because the amount of money available is huge. But yeah, if you think of valuations, I mean, I know somebody in Chicago who got into Facebook at a $25 billion valuation, participated then and told his boss, and he was telling me the story very proudly earlier this week, that he told his boss it was the first and last time he was going to tell him that at a $25 billion valuation, he expected them to get a 10x return. So, again, it's probably Facebook even here, people think of it as a $50, $60 billion valuation today, but there are people out there that think it's worth a lot more.
Is he a good friend?
He's a good friend. He's a very successful VC, so I wouldn't bet against him.
So to me, the bubble is if you invested a lot of money and that money is never going to come back, right? I mean, it's an example of a bubble. So now we see a lot of activity because it's easier to experiment and do a company, a lot less resources required, no servers, you can build something very quickly. So it's probably an example of Darwinism at its peak in the internet industry, because you now can get lots of, one space looks attractive, there can be 20 different companies trying it. Clearly all 20 may not succeed, but the one or two that really do a good job will succeed. And you'll know a lot earlier if something succeeds. So the seed idea, the incubation, sort of helps us develop ideas faster that succeed. So in the past, you might have thought of Silicon Valley much more as a very high fixed cost to get in, and once you get in, you got a pretty good track record making mediocre company. So now you got a very low fixed cost, and you get a much better chance of making a very high value company like Facebook. But then there are, just like Facebook, there were 16, 20, 50 companies doing social networks. They're not there anymore. So this is an example of that kind of model. So I wouldn't call it a bubble as much as it's easier to get going. And to people that wasted time and money and say perhaps a lot of psychic value out of doing this, but at the end of it, that's what's changing.
Well, and even that said, does it make sense? It's kind of pessimistic thinking, but these lower barriers to entry, in a sense, then there's less at stake, right?
Well, not less at stake. There's more risk and there's higher rewards. So that's what's at stake, right? So it's like the 16th person who's opening a hair salon on the same street. Yeah. Like, is that person stupid? Well, if they succeed, they wouldn't be stupid.
Well, yeah, I guess you just need to find how you're going to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
So which actually raises a question when we look at this space, how prepared are retailers and those selling either products or services? I mean, on the other end of things, how are retailers and others adapting to this?
I think there's a lot of experimentation going on in retail. So, I mean, we pretty much have a client base that runs the who's who of retail, and whether you're Target or Walgreens or Home Depot, people are doing a lot of experiments, and some of them have been very, very successful. And one of the things that might be of general use to everybody here, Walgreens fills 750 million prescriptions a year. So a lot of people in the room probably fill a prescription at Walgreens, and they've created a mobile app that makes it super simple to fill a prescription. You scan the thing, you can go pick it up right away, or at a store near you, very, very conveniently. So there are things that are working that make a lot of sense that people have been successful with. There are a lot of other things that people have tried that have been less successful. But I think most retailers today, I mean, again, if you go back to the paradigm I was talking about earlier, truck one goes to TV and truck two goes to print. And Mike knows some of that money is moving. It's just, there's so many different options that people are considering today in terms of things that might work, And there hasn't been enough experimentation at scale to say, this is where the large tranche of money is now going. So there's a lot of experimentation still before we see a change in the media mix in a very defined way.
Yeah, truck number 2 has kind of become a mini cargo van. But
Truck number 2 has gotten a little smaller, yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and I think in the local commerce space, I think merchants by and large have been very receptive, and they're just getting educated now, right? So there's, I mean, to the point, there's tons of different options for them as they think about, okay, how do I do online advertising? What makes sense? Because I think many local merchants, while they're still doing it, when they see radio, they see print advertising, they can't get results guaranteed to them. And all of a sudden now there are people saying that we can do this. And you know, based on our experiences thus far, it's been by and large like tremendously receptive, and then it's just merchants really understanding, you know, what certain platforms can provide and how that can really take their business to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to speak about product shopping, the regular part of U.S. retail. And I think that there it's a bit of the head of the retail, a lot of all the 300, 400 large retailers, like Best Buy all the way to some of the mall stores, they are actually finding it difficult to deal with this because we in Silicon Valley can usually relate to the fact that we have a mobile phone and your daughter's reading the news on it. But retailers have been conditioned to thinking about things much more in terms of merchandising, what products to carry, floor space, which is where to get the store. Retail has always been location, location, location. And then about people, you know, the hiring all the sales associates.
Right.
Now you change the game completely into, hey, you need to know about Facebook, you need to know about slow-mo, right? You know, you get a smartphone, how are you going to service it? The entire back-end infrastructure has to change. And I think that's a long process. You know, us expecting to change overnight is difficult. That's going to be a slow process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, something when you come up with an idea and you're trying to execute a startup, you got to be cognizant of the fact that you can't push the retailer too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, for the large retailer, everything needs to happen at scale. You know, getting 500,000 something people, audience in Foursquare or whatever it is kind of interesting as an experiment, but to really make a shift in terms of the way they run their marketing programs, it needs tremendous scale, and they don't make those kind of changes without having tested it, validated it, and you know, it's going to take a while. But there's a lot of experimentation going on.
So I'm thinking about these 750 million prescriptions in the Walgreens app, and thinking about the day when your iPhone will take your blood pressure, write the prescription, and send it to Walgreens for you to pick up. But maybe I'm a little George Jetson there.
Well, I think, you know, I don't know if you guys all remember Minority Report from 2002, but in Minority Report, if you recall, Tom Cruise walks into a Gap, and the store recognizes him and suggests an outfit. So, you know, I don't think we're quite there yet. We're not very far away. I mean, I think you know, we're now at a place where people know where you are. They know a lot about you in terms of your interests and things you're looking for. And so, you know, the opportunity to intersect all that information and really make suggestions at pretty much anywhere, anytime using your mobile phone. I mean, we're just not that far away.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you know, now or certainly a couple years ago, typical shopping day might be you get up on a Saturday morning and drive to the mall or look for a shirt there, and you don't find, you go to Target maybe, stop at Safeway in between. Anyone want to have some fun looking at what shopping might look like 2 years, 5 years from now?
How about right now? I mean, one of the coolest things out there is Macy's Magic Fitting Mirror. You guys seen this thing?
It sounds frightening.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you go to this place, they've got a 6-foot-long mirror. You don't even actually have to try on the clothes. It just shows you what it would look like on you. And then there's an iPad there where you can, on Facebook, send that to your friends so they can tell you what it looks good on you.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
So the guys don't hang out in those battered old chairs outside the fitting rooms anymore?
Well, they can still hang out, but they're not as essential anymore.
Well, I don't know that they ever were. That's a different conference room discussion.
No, but I mean, I think it's going to be real-time shopping, right? Again, it gets back to the point of relevance, where if you can actually have truly value-added options, offers coming to you when it's at lunch and there's a merchant down the street that you really like, and they know who you are, they want to reward you in some way, and they can do that. That's going to be meaningful, and that, I mean, I think people, if value is there, you know, people are willing to engage, customers are willing to engage at almost any time.
Yeah, I've kind of separated out, like, I think we're all talking about things where you go out and do something because you're looking for something. So look at it as shopping is really two parts to it. The efficiency part, when you have to buy something, how to make that easier. And as technologists, we're so used to solving that problem. But the other part of shopping, the reason you go to the mall on Sunday is about entertainment, about, you know, about, hey, I got some time to kill, and I don't know what I want, I'm just going to go see the windows and decide what to buy. The whole next couple of years is about getting that part of retail, which is, you know, as everybody knows, the e-commerce is still single digits. The part that's going to the mall and shopping is 90+%. And to do that, you really have to make shopping more interesting and enthusiastic and fun. And it isn't about delivering offers alone, it's about making the offers compelling and interesting and exciting. The reason something like Guild to Living Social works is they've done a good job of curating the best offers from the area and giving it to you, right? So that kind of makes it fun. And you see something interesting, great pictures, and you could do something like try it on Magic Mirror without going to Macy's. And that would make it more interesting.
Yeah, no, Sean's exactly right, man. I think that's the point we don't want to lose, that for the retailer, it's increasingly important to make the store experience just a lot more engaging. Because, I mean, I don't know where you guys all live and what you're experiencing in terms of retail. You know, we no longer have a Blockbuster store in our neighborhood, and we no longer have a Border store in our neighborhood. So movies are out, books are out. Electronics is probably headed that way. The Circuit Cities are gone, the Best Buys struggling with that Amazon comparison every day. So it's becoming more and more challenging for physical retail. And the reason people will go and still buy in a physical store is because I can present a completely different experience. Because, yeah, I mean, it's great to interact with your computer, but if you can go to the store and have a really sensational experience and a different experience of the products and just the shopping experience, I think that's what retailers need to do. And that's the transformation that needs to happen in physical retail.
I got 2 words for you along those lines. Apple Store.
Yeah, Apple Store. And actually, Best Buy is trying to copy the Apple Store.
Well, that's probably a smart thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see how they do with that.
Apple Store.
I mean, the other kind of stores that work in the Midwest, there's always giant outdoor stores, like a Bass Pro, huge, where you actually can try out various things.
Oh, yeah.
That's an experiential system, and that would work. So that's a case where you can actually add technology to that, really make it an interesting half a day, one day, go kill and do something.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned Blockbuster. I was on Caltrain this week at night, and I don't know, somewhere in San Carlos, somewhere along there, along El Camino, you go by a Blockbuster. I looked in there, it was all brightly lighted, empty. There was nobody in there. And I mean, I'm wondering, what's the retail landscape going to look like as we move presumably faster into this slow-mo world?
Go ahead.
No, like, actually, I think it just brings me to an interesting point where if you think about the evolution where big boxes came in, sort of got rid of mom and pop stores by and large, what you're seeing, because I think this experience element is truly, I mean, it's truly important for merchants going forward. Where the best, I mean, depending on how well they can innovate and sort of create experiences within these big boxes, I think what you're going to start seeing is a lot of business going back to the mom and pop type stores that can all of a sudden create these really interesting experiences and better engage customers.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to see the number of retailers get reduced. And a couple of things that retailers will do to separate, one is private label. So if you're Walgreens, you're increasing the number of private label products that you stock. And in other kind of retail, there's sort of a different name for it, exclusive lines. You know, so if you're Macy's and JCPenney and Kohl's and all these guys, you're bringing in exclusive designers so that you can differentiate. You got to find something different for the consumer, and that's the way that you have to separate.
Well, the part of retail, which again we didn't talk about, is lifestyle. It's clothes, it's fashion, it's makeup, it's all that. That's not commoditized. Drugs are commoditized, and Blockbuster, books, and music, DVDs. So parts that are not commoditized do require physical selling, showrooms, and experience, and try it on, and all that. I think you'll still see that in the mall. You can't really sell a dress when you can't see it, see what it looks like. But it's going to be a way in which that store has to involve the social, local, and mobile aspect. It needs to know who you are when you walk to the store. It needs to know that this stock address is available and can be shipped to you tomorrow, because you don't want to be in the store and say, oh, well, size 6 isn't available. I don't have this color. I don't have that thing. So the idea of integrating all those experiences in a seamless way for you is very important. So I think that's where the retailers have struggled with, is how big should the store be, where should it be, how should the experience be inside the store, and then how does it relate to the rest of the experience, which is online and in various ways. It's online on Facebook, it's online on a smartphone, it's online on a tablet, and you got to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, to Shiva's point, one of the retailers that's doing a very nice job with that sort of thing is Nordstrom. So, I mean, we all know of Nordstrom as a very high-tech store, but Nordstrom is now rolling out mobile phones to their associates and iPads, so that they'll be able to check to see if something's on stock or ordered online for you. So, so they're being thoughtful about connecting both the store to the web. And really, that's what the change that you're seeing that's happening. You can sit at home and experience both the online store and the physical store. And so all of these worlds are coming together, and both for the consumer as well as the retailer, they're starting to think more and more, and particularly the retailer. The retailers have, for the last several years, really been very siloed in terms of, here's the team that runs the .com operation, here's the team that runs the physical stores. I mean, that stuff needs to go away. The consumer no longer cares, and so retailers are getting smarter about it, and they're saying, okay, I need to think about it holistically. I need to be marketing to the consumer and not going to market as a channel. So that's a big shift in retail.
If I tell my daughter that at Nordstrom they give you an iPad, I might be able to get her to go get a job there.
Yeah.
So now I think I'll turn some questions over to the real experts, who are the people who came to hear this. This is a good question. What do you see as the international opportunities for social shopping in Asia, Europe, the Middle East? I would think in some ways, some places are ahead of us.
Yes. Yeah, so it just depends on the proliferation of the handset for the most part, and there are countries that are ahead of us in terms of the usage. So if you're in Japan or Korea or places like that, those folks are Finland or whatever, all those places are very active. So that's the infrastructure and support that's enabled, and that makes the difference. And so, I mean, one of the things that hasn't happened here that will probably happen is the whole notion of things like Facebook credits. And so those are the things that are already happening and probably have been happening for several years outside that we haven't quite seen. So virtual currency and things like that, and virtual products.
What about sort of the daily deal space? I talked to an entrepreneur in India who's got such a business, and he, the way he said it, he basically had to create almost a culture for it, or find a culture for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you see, excuse me, the daily deal model, I mean, it's pretty much in every country you could imagine. And I think I think there are cultural elements. You've seen it take off, better in certain countries than others. But I mean, inherently, I think it's sort of a global phenomenon where if people want, if they can get, a great experience at a good price and be engaged, they're going to take advantage of that.
No, I was going to say that some of the other people, some of the overseas markets have actually innovated in some of the areas. Like you see variations of the daily deal sites where it's a membership club, you got to be invited to be in it, but they get a special deal. It's only so many people, so it makes it very exclusive. Other deals where the other part of commerce that we can talk about is it's made-to-order products, and those are sourced and manufactured overseas. Nowadays you can see there's custom shirts, custom pants, suits that you could buy from, which are an international company that they're made somewhere, shipped somewhere else. And those are the kind of things that, again, go away from the commodity to a very custom product. And it's a service, so because you've got the measurements, and you're going to come back over and over again. So I think the innovation is spreading with this kind of area. You will see ideas that you perhaps might not have thought of came from the valley, but might have come because they're very international.
Well, along those lines, can you talk about maybe 2 or 3 untapped opportunities in this space in slow, low mode? Or maybe not fully tapped, or something along those lines?
I think with solo mode, we're just so much in the early stage that it's hard to say what's untapped because frankly, we're just barely scratching the surface. I mean, like, just yesterday I was reading about a company that's doing the following. They're tracking all your check-ins and they're tracking all your posts about where you might be. They're aggregating that stuff and they're making it available to marketers to be able to market to you based on that. So, I mean, I look at that today and I go, man, that sounds a little creepy. But I mean, those are the kinds of things that are going to start to happen, and that the amount of intelligence that's available, and some of it that you put out there or your friends have put out there, in addition to all the stuff that's been around forever. I mean, we can't forget that companies like Axiom and Experian and whatever, I mean, people have known who we are, what we do in terms of lifestyles and whatnot for a very long time. It's just the stuff that we're adding to the public domain and through Facebook Connect sharing is just another layer on top of it. And then the fact that with the mobile phone, I mean, anywhere, anytime, right? I mean, now I know everything about you and I can get to you anywhere. I mean, the possibilities are just endless. And it's just a matter of like getting to what makes the most sense and what the smartest way of doing it is. But I think in the end, it's not going to look like check-ins anymore. It's going to look like Minority Report. I mean, it's not going to be so much I need to raise my hand as much as long as I've opted in, stuff's going to be coming at me and it better be relevant.
So to me, a good untapped opportunity for retail is the tablet. I think the experience on tablets is quite different from what you could get on a computer, and it's yet again different from what you could do on a phone, smartphone. So retail, the tablet's a very convenient medium. It looks like a magazine, it feels like a video device, and a lot of parts of shopping that work outside of the computer, like the QVC type model. That kind of models can be translated into a tablet form factor much easier than they can on a computer. So there's some opportunity there for that's still untapped. I think it's interesting at it.
Mike, I would agree strongly with that. I think that's an idea for the newspaper industry.
Yeah.
The tablet is a good vehicle for the newspaper industry to port value and build stuff on top of it.
Let's talk after. Here are a couple related questions. This is interesting. Why, even after 10 plus years, do you think e-commerce is 6 to 7% of total commerce market? And then, does anybody care to take a stab at what percentage of commerce will be online in 2020?
E-commerce has just moved pretty naturally. There's certain categories that would make sense. So things that were commoditized, all the stuff that happened earlier was computers and things like that. Because there wasn't a need to see, touch, feel and stuff. Because you already know what that looks like. I mean, a book is a book is a book. So certain categories have moved a lot faster. A certain degree of the inhibitors for e-commerce were early on, and we've forgotten all this already, was security, privacy, all that kind of stuff. That's now behind us. So we're starting to see things accelerate. And things like better commoditized electronics, books, et cetera, at a pretty high level of coverage. Probably the other extreme is a category like grocery, where the average family spends $10,000 a year. So a large portion of the spend is going to a category like grocery, which doesn't lend itself quite as well to research or buying it online. But even the grocery category, and I firmly believe the grocery category in the end will be the highest utility that the internet will deliver to the consumer, because I shop groceries every week while I buy a TV every couple of years if I'm lucky, right? So that depends on what my wife is thinking, but yes. So for grocery shopping, I think we will start to see recipes, meal planning, circulars, coupons, all of that stuff bundled into really utilitarian experience for the consumer. And then we'll start to see an even greater impact online.
I've already been to Safeway today.
Have you?
Yeah. So
There you go.
I'll
Yeah.
probably be there again.
And I think an interesting thing, if you sort of break out the mobile commerce, I think that would be, so I think if you look at e-commerce over the last sort of decade, it's a fairly linear sort of increase, but I think mobile you're going to see, just as with the adoption patterns and things like that, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting non-linear growth trend.
Yeah, and to me, I'd say that two parts to it. So one is that you've taken on the commodity products, but the bulk of retail isn't the commodity products only. It's you said, one part is groceries, the other part is soft goods, so lifestyle goods. And to take those out, you have to handle fit and service and returns and people's comfort that if I buy a shoe that's going to actually fit me when I get it. And that is getting handled now. So there'll be a secondary growth spurt. It's already started this year. We're having a better than average e-commerce growth. The second part is the immediacy of delivery. So you got to solve that where if I order at 8 o'clock, I get it by 4 o'clock, it's in my house, so I can go pick it up. And you have to address that because a lot of shopping is about immediate need. You went to surf because you needed something today. Right? So, okay, so that doesn't help if you are online. So that making those two things, get those things closer and closer together, you really will have an online order and the store acts like a pickup point or a 80-20 rule. 80% of the items are going to be stored offline, but the 20% that's high moving, yeah, they're there at the store. You go pick it up. It's a 7-Eleven model. Each store could be a smaller size, but still there.
Yeah, that makes sense. This was directed to Rob, but feel free to chime in. Do you fear that businesses will see downward pressure on margins because of the daily deal craze? In other words, if I'm going to get a massage at $20, maybe $30, why would I ever pay full price?
No, so, I mean, this is one of the big comments or objections that merchants want to have. So, I think what you're seeing is, I made the comment, right, there's 200 plus daily deal sites out there. If you think the ones that if you really want to reach a local audience sort of at scale, there's only a couple in every sort of city you're at, right? So there's us, there's Groupon, and then there's a couple other companies depending on what city you're in that have a pretty big presence. But other than that, merchants by and large, the numbers they would like to hit, it's difficult for them to reach on a lot of the other daily deal sites. So with that, I don't think you're going to start seeing merchants run so frequently that all of a sudden you're setting a consumer expectation of like, hey, this massage that normally is $80 should always be $40. And again, I think it gets to working this is some of the fun of working with the merchants is, in our mind, and we almost view ourselves as merchandisers ourselves, where we're trying to work with merchants to create experiences. And if you can create a very unique experience that the merchant has never offered before, then all of a sudden it doesn't really allow the consumer to say, oh, okay, this is the same service or product that I always get, and they're selling it just half off. Like, no, we've actually created something unique for our consumers, partnering with this merchant, and that's really meaningful.
That's interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you see a role, and what might that role be for digital gift cards in a slow, low world?
So, gift cards is a very, very big business, and social. It's your very good friend on Facebook. It's his birthday, and you forgot to send him a gift. Never, right? So the gift card is the best thing you could do, and you could look at his graph and see, oh yeah, well he shops at this store all the time, or he's a very good fan of this kind of band, and you want to send him a gift card for iTunes so you can download tune. And that's I think going to become more and more possible because instantaneously you could do just happy birthday on his wall and also send him something. And the same
just do happy birthday on his wall. That's nice.
That'd be good, yeah. But it's your very good friend. He sent you a really expensive bottle of wine. You got to send it back.
Send it back.
And increasingly the format may change. It may no longer be a physical thing. It may just be, I send you 200 Facebook credits when you're done.
Yeah, that makes, yeah. What type of B2B opportunities do you see in social mobile applications?
Selling to businesses?